used to clean toilets for $12 an hour. And one of the women I worked for? She looked me straight in the eye and said, "Girls like you don't go anywhere in life." 5 years later, I bought the house next to hers. In cash. If you've ever been told you're not enough, stay with me. Because this story is for you. Where it all started. My name is Sarah. And before you keep watching, I want you to know something. This isn't some polished success story with a perfect ending wrapped in a bow. This is messy. This is real. This is what it actually feels like to be broke, to be humiliated, and to claw your way out of it one small step at a time. So let me take you back to where this all began. I grew up in a small town in Ohio. Nothing fancy. My dad worked at a factory that shut down when I was 14. My mom cleaned houses for extra cash. Even though she was already working 2 other jobs. We didn't have much. Actually, let me be honest with you, we had almost nothing. I remember one winter, our heater broke, and we couldn't afford to fix it for almost 2 months. I used to sleep in 3 layers of clothes. My mom would boil water on the stove just so we could wash our hands with something warm. You might be wondering, how does a kid grow up in a house like that and not feel broken by it? Honestly, I did feel broken. I felt embarrassed every single day. Kids at school had new sneakers. I had the same pair for 3 years, duct taped at the sole. I used to hide my shoes under my desk so nobody would see the tape. I'm telling you this because I want you to understand. The story you're about to hear didn't start with some big dramatic moment. It started with small, quiet humiliations. The kind nobody sees. The kind that build up inside you until one day, you either let them crush you, or you let them become fuel. I chose fuel. Eventually. But not right away. The first crack. When I turned 19, my dad got sick. Really sick. Diabetes complications. On top of the depression he'd been fighting since the factory closed. My mom couldn't work as much because she had to take care of him. So the bills landed on me. I had just started community college. I wanted to study nursing. I actually loved the idea of helping people, of having a stable job, of maybe, just maybe, giving my parents a better life one day. But dreams don't pay hospital bills. I dropped out after 1 semester. I remember sitting in my car outside the registrar's office, filling out the withdrawal form, and just crying. Not loud crying. The quiet kind. The kind where you're trying not to let anyone hear you fall apart in a parking lot. I needed money. Fast. And the fastest thing I could find was a job cleaning houses for a company that served wealthy families in the suburbs. I still remember my first day. I was assigned to clean a house that was bigger than my entire street back home. Marble floors. A chandelier in the hallway that probably cost more than my dad's medical bills. And I remember thinking, these people don't even know what it's like to worry about heat in the winter. I wasn't jealous, not exactly. I was just aware. Painfully aware of the gap between their world and mine. The woman who broke me. There's one woman I'll never forget. I'm not going to use her real name, but I'll call her Mrs. Whitmore. Mrs. Whitmore was one of my regular clients. Beautiful house. Beautiful clothes. And absolutely no patience for people like me. The first few months, she barely spoke to me. She'd just leave lists of instructions on the kitchen counter, like I was invisible. I actually didn't mind that. Invisible was fine. Invisible meant no conflict. But one day, I broke a vase while dusting a shelf. It was an accident. My sleeve caught the edge of it, and it slipped. I immediately apologized, told her I would pay for it, even though I knew that vase probably cost more than 2 weeks of my paycheck. And that's when she said it. She looked at me, straight in the eyes and said, "It's fine. It's not like it was worth much to begin with. Kind of like this job, right? Girls like you don't go anywhere in life. You clean houses because that's all you'll ever be able to do." I want you to sit with that for a second. Because I did. I sat with it for years. I didn't say anything back. I just apologized again, finished cleaning her house, and drove home in silence. I didn't cry that day. I think I was too numb to cry. It was like something inside me just went quiet. You know what's crazy? I went home that night, and I actually started believing her. I started thinking, maybe she's right. Maybe this is all I'll ever be. A maid. Someone who cleans up after people who see her as nothing. I never thought I'd say this, but there's a strange kind of danger in hearing something negative enough times. Eventually, some part of you starts to agree with it. Not because it's true, but because you're tired of fighting it. The years that followed. For the next 4 years, I did exactly what Mrs. Whitmore expected of me. I stayed small. I stayed quiet. I cleaned houses 6 days a week, sometimes 12-hour days. I sent money home to help with my dad's medical bills. I barely kept anything for myself. I want to be honest with you about something. This part of the story isn't glamorous. There's no secret hack, no overnight success. It was just hard. Every single day. I remember one particular week that broke something in me. My car broke down, and I didn't have the money to fix it. I had to take 2 buses just to get to my first cleaning job, which meant waking up at 4:30 in the morning. My hands were cracked and bleeding from using cleaning chemicals without proper gloves, because the company didn't provide good ones and I couldn't afford better ones myself. And on top of all that, my dad passed away that same year. I remember standing at his funeral, still in the same black dress I'd worn to 3 other funerals, because it was the only formal dress I owned. My mom held my hand the entire service, and I remember thinking, is this it? Is this just what my life is going to be? Struggle, loss on repeat? You might be wondering how I kept going after that. Honestly, some days I didn't know either. I just did the next thing. Woke up, went to work, came home, slept, repeat. There's something people don't tell you about hardship. It doesn't always come with a dramatic turning point right after the darkest moment. Sometimes the darkness just stays for a long time. And you have to learn to function inside it before you ever find your way out. The small spark. About 6 months after my dad passed, something small happened. Something that, at the time, didn't feel like much. But looking back now, I realize it was the first spark of everything that came after. I was cleaning a house for a new client, a woman named Diane. Diane was different from most of my clients. She actually talked to me, asked me questions. Not the fake, polite kind of questions people ask just to fill silence. Real questions. One day, while I was cleaning her kitchen, she noticed I had a notebook sticking out of my bag. It wasn't anything special, just a cheap spiral notebook where I used to write down my thoughts, mostly complaints about my day, sometimes little ideas I had about starting my own cleaning business one day. I never told anyone about that notebook. It felt silly to even think about, honestly. Diane picked it up. I'd left it on the counter by accident, and she read a page before I could stop her. It was a page where I'd written out a rough plan. Prices for a cleaning service. Ideas for how I'd treat my employees differently than how I'd been treated. How I'd actually train people properly, give them good equipment, pay them fairly. I was embarrassed. I thought she was going to laugh at me, the same way Mrs. Whitmore had laughed at me years before. Instead, she looked up and said, "Sarah, this is a real business plan. Have you ever thought about actually doing this?" I laughed it off. I told her, "I'm just a maid, Diane. I don't have the money or the connections to start something like this." And she said something I've never forgotten. She said, "You're not just a maid. You're someone who understands exactly what this industry is missing, because you've lived it. That's worth more than money or connections. That's worth more than people realize." I didn't believe her. Not that day. But her words planted something in me. A tiny seed. And it just sat there quiet for a long time. The turning point. Here's the thing about turning points. They rarely look dramatic in the moment. Mine definitely didn't. About a year after that conversation with Diane, I was assigned to clean Mrs. Whitmore's house again. It had been a while since I'd been in her rotation, but her regular cleaner had quit, and my company sent me to fill in. Walking back into that house felt like walking into a memory I'd tried to bury. I remembered the vase. I remembered her words. Girls like you don't go anywhere in life. But something was different this time. I wasn't the same 19-year-old girl who apologized and shrank into silence. I was 24 now. I'd survived losing my father. I'd survived years of exhausting, underpaid labor. I'd survived more than she probably ever had to survive in her entire life. While I was cleaning, Mrs. Whitmore came downstairs and, to my surprise, actually apologized. She said she remembered what she'd said to me years ago and that it had been unkind. She said her husband had recently left her, her business was struggling, and she'd been going through a hard time back then. Though that was never an excuse. I appreciated the apology. I really did. But something about that moment lit a fire in me that I hadn't felt in years. Because as she was talking about her struggling business, I realized something. I understood struggle. I understood people. I understood exactly what it felt like to be underestimated, overworked, and underpaid. And I realized I had spent years learning things most people never learn. How to manage time under pressure. How to handle difficult clients. How to work efficiently. How to survive on almost nothing and still show up every single day. I didn't have an MBA. I didn't have investors. I didn't have connections. But I had 5 years of brutal real-world experience in an industry that most business owners had never actually worked in themselves. That night, I went home, pulled out that same cheap spiral notebook, and I started writing again. Except this time, I wasn't just dreaming. I was planning. Building from nothing. I want to be really clear with you about something. What happened next was not easy, and it was not fast. If you're expecting me to say I quit my job the next day, and became a millionaire within months, that's not what happened. That's not how real life works. I started small. I kept my full-time cleaning job because I needed the income. But on weekends, I started taking on a few private clients of my own. Just 2 or 3 houses at first. I charged fair prices, showed up early, worked hard, and treated every single client with respect, no matter how small the job was. Word started spreading. Slowly, but it started spreading. I saved every single extra dollar I made. I lived on almost nothing. I didn't buy new clothes. I didn't go out with friends. I ate rice and beans more nights than I can count. My mom used to worry about me, tell me I was working myself into the ground. And honestly, some nights, I wondered if she was right. But I kept going. Because for the first time in years, I had something I hadn't had in a long time. Hope. A real, tangible plan. After about 8 months of working both jobs, I had saved enough to buy proper equipment. Good vacuums, quality cleaning products, a used but reliable van with my company's name on it. I quit my job at the cleaning company and went full-time with my own small business. I called it Fresh Start Cleaning. I chose that name on purpose, because that's exactly what it was for me. A fresh start. The first year of running my own business was brutal. I was doing everything myself, cleaning, scheduling, marketing, bookkeeping. There were nights I fell asleep at my kitchen table with invoices still in my hand. There were months I genuinely didn't know if I'd make rent. I remember one particular low point. I lost 3 clients in the same month because a bigger, more established cleaning company undercut my prices. I sat in my car outside my apartment and cried for the first time in years. I thought about giving up. I thought about Mrs. Whitmore's words again. Girls like you don't go anywhere in life. But then I thought about my dad. I thought about all those years he worked in that factory, showing up every single day even when it was hard, even when nobody thanked him for it. And I thought, if he could keep showing up for us, I can keep showing up for myself. So I didn't quit. I adjusted. I started focusing less on undercutting prices and more on quality and trust. I trained myself to treat every client relationship like it actually mattered, because it did. The growth nobody saw coming. Slowly, things started to shift. My reputation grew. Clients started referring me to their friends. I hired my first employee, a young woman named Jasmine who reminded me a lot of myself at 19. Scared, unsure but hardworking. I remember training her and telling her something I wished someone had told me years earlier. I told her, "You are not defined by this job. This job is just a chapter, not your whole story." By the end of year 2, I had 5 employees. By year 3, I had expanded into 2 nearby cities. I started offering not just residential cleaning, but commercial contracts too, offices, small businesses, even a few medical clinics. I want to pause here and tell you something important. None of this happened because I was lucky. None of this happened because someone handed me an opportunity. It happened because I refused to let one woman's cruel words define the rest of my life. It happened because I turned pain into purpose, one small decision at a time. By year 4, my business had grown enough that I was able to buy my mom a house. I'll never forget handing her the keys. She just stood there in the driveway, completely silent, tears running down her face. She kept saying, "How did you do this? How did my daughter do this?" I told her the truth. I said, "I didn't do anything magical, Mom. I just refused to quit." Full circle. By year 5, my business had grown into something I never could have imagined back when I was scrubbing floors for $12 an hour. We had contracts with several corporate offices. We had over 30 employees. And for the first time in my life, my net worth crossed 7 figures. I became technically a millionaire. The same girl who used to hide duct-taped shoes under her desk. The same girl who was told she'd never go anywhere in life. And here's the part of the story that still gives me chills every time I tell it. I found out that the house next to Mrs. Whitmore's was for sale. I didn't buy it out of spite, I promise you that. I bought it because it was genuinely a beautiful house in a great neighborhood, close to my mom, close to good schools for the future kids I hope to have one day. But I won't lie to you. There was a small part of me, a quiet, human part, that felt something powerful when I signed those papers. I paid for that house in full. Cash. No loans. No mortgage. A few weeks after I moved in, I ran into Mrs. Whitmore at the mailbox. She looked at me, confused at first, like she couldn't quite place where she recognized me from. And then it clicked. She said, "Sarah? Are you my new neighbor?" I smiled and said yes. She looked genuinely stunned. She asked what I did for a living now. And I told her simply, "I own a cleaning company. A pretty big one, actually." I could see it on her face. That moment of realization. The girl she once told would never go anywhere in life was now living next door to her, in a house she'd paid for in full, running a business that employed dozens of people. I didn't rub it in her face. I didn't need to, because honestly, by that point, I wasn't doing any of this to prove her wrong. I was doing it to prove myself right. What I learned. I want to slow down here for a moment, because I don't want you to walk away from this video thinking it's just a story about revenge or proving someone wrong. It's so much deeper than that. Here's what I actually learned through all of this. First, I learned that other people's opinions of you are not facts. They're just opinions, shaped by their own limited understanding of who you are and what you're capable of. Mrs. Whitmore didn't know my heart. She didn't know my work ethic. She didn't know what I was capable of surviving. She just saw a girl cleaning her house and made a snap judgment. And for years, I let that judgment define me. That was my mistake, not hers. Second, I learned that struggle isn't a sign that you're doing something wrong. Sometimes struggle is just the process. It's the price of building something real. Every hard season I went through, losing my dad, working 2 jobs, crying in my car, losing clients. All of it taught me something I needed to know before I could handle real success. Third, I learned that small, consistent actions matter more than big, dramatic moments. I didn't become successful because of one lucky break. I became successful because I showed up, day after day, year after year, even when I didn't feel like it, even when I wanted to quit. And fourth, maybe most importantly, I learned that dignity isn't something other people give you. It's something you carry inside yourself. No matter what job you're doing, no matter how much money is in your bank account. I was just as worthy of respect when I was scrubbing toilets for $12 an hour as I am now. The only thing that changed is that I finally started believing that myself. Where I am now. Today my business has grown even further. We now operate in 3 states. I've been able to create stable, well-paying jobs for people who remind me of myself all those years ago. People who just needed someone to believe in them, to train them properly, to treat them with basic human respect. I started a small scholarship fund in my dad's name for kids in my hometown who want to go to college, but can't afford it. Every year, we help a few students avoid the exact situation I was in when I had to drop out of community college. My mom lives comfortably now. She doesn't clean houses anymore unless she genuinely wants to help a neighbor out of kindness, not necessity. And me? I still remember exactly what it felt like to be that girl standing in Mrs. Whitmore's kitchen, holding a broken vase, being told I'd never go anywhere in life. I keep that memory close. Not because it hurts anymore. It doesn't, not really. I keep it close because it reminds me of where I came from. And it keeps me humble about where I am now. A message for you. So if you're watching this right now, and you're going through something hard, if someone told you that you're not enough, that you'll never amount to anything, that you're stuck exactly where you are forever, I need you to hear me on this. They are wrong. You don't know what's on the other side of your struggle yet. I certainly didn't. If you had told 19-year-old me, crying in that parking lot after dropping out of college, that one day I'd own a multi-state business and live in a house I paid for in cash, I would have laughed at you. I wouldn't have believed a single word. But here I am. Your current situation is not your final destination. It's just a chapter. A hard one maybe, but not the whole story. I don't know what you're carrying right now. Maybe it's debt. Maybe it's grief. Maybe it's a job that makes you feel small, or a person in your life who's convinced you that you'll never be more than what you are right now. Whatever it is, I want you to do one thing for me. I want you to keep going. Not because it's easy. It's not. I just showed you 5 years of my life, and trust me, none of it was easy. But keep going anyway. One small step at a time. One hard day at a time. If this story moved you even a little bit, I'd genuinely love to hear from you. Drop a comment and tell me. Has anyone ever told you that you wouldn't amount to anything? And more importantly, what are you doing today to prove them wrong? And if you believe in second chances, in fresh starts, in people rising from the bottom to build something real, hit subscribe, because there are so many more stories like this one still to come. Thank you for sitting with me through this one. It meant more to share it than you probably know. I'll see you in the next story.